So in situations that involve percent changes, what equation should you use, at least for this unit? Table 3, can you tell me? Okay, you're not wrong, but like, can you tell me what it's gonna be multiplying by each year? Yeah, because the A could be easy. Table 4, what's the A gonna be in this situation? A stands for back to you. Table 5, what will the A be in this situation? 500. A stands for what class? Initial amount. All right. B stands for common factor. So that's helpful if it says like it's doubling each time, then B would be 2. If it's halving each time, then B would be 1/2. This time it has a percent change. So, I mean, you might be able to tell me what you multiply by each time, but what do you think? 1.12. So how they got that, in case you're not sure, is this variation of our exponential functions. They both represent exponential functions. You can use either one. It's just that when it's percent changes, this one better explains why it became 1.12. All right, does interest add or subtract from the total? Interest, does it add or subtract from the total class? So I would do the 1 plus whatever B becomes should be greater than 1 because that would mean it's growing. Interest adds to the cost, so it should be growing. The R stands for what? Table 6, can you tell me what the R stands for? Or can you tell me maybe what the R will be in this situation? The interest rate. So R stands for rate, but as a decimal. Your growth rate as a decimal. So then 12% as a decimal class is good. That's where we got 1.12 in the parentheses. That's why our B is 1.12. So still an exponential function, and then depending on however many years, X is usually time. This could be your expression that you made. Technically, it's an equation because it has an equal sign. But this can solve for any value of X. And then you were told to find the answer after 5 years. How much do they owe? So table 7, where do I plug in that 5? On the X, which stands for time in years. And then from there, I do expect you to use your calculator. I don't really know how else you could get the answer. From there, you just put it in your calculator. The hard part, I guess, is setting it up. So then you'll have 500 times the 1.12. And so the X power will let me graph it, right? But we want like the answer for 5 years. So if you just need to input 5, I don't know where I did one graph, probably up there. But if I just want for a particular time frame, it'll give me that. Since we're talking about money, round to where it looks like money. So 2 decimal spots. Should it be 0.17 or 0.18? You know they're rounding. So 0.17 or 0.18? 0.17. So wherever you do need to round to, underline it, look to the right of it, that'll tell you if where you underline stays the same or you round up. If it's 0 to 4, the number you underline stays the same. If it's 5 to 9, you round up. On the last quiz, there were some rounding issues. Some of the problems didn't tell you what to round to, so I had to go back and add points to anyone who still got the same answer. But when it does tell you to round to a particular number, like on your test and on today's quiz, you need to do it. You need to follow those instructions. I won't be giving you a point back if you don't round. So questions on that? So just a few reminders. I think I've taught you everything that you need to know for the test. I think we just need to practice some of it a bit more. So that's why I'm still continuing to teach you the lessons that are left. It could be today, tomorrow, Monday, maybe Tuesday. So today we are still applying percent increases. And more specifically, just reading the problem. If it says that T is supposed to be days, let's actually do a little example of that. If in the problem it says that X or your T is supposed to be days, and then it asks you what's the change after 3 weeks, I'm not going to plug in a 3 for the variable. How many days are in 3 weeks? How many days are in 1 week? So then 7 times 3 is. That's really all the difference is in today's lesson and the previous lesson. I told you this unit kind of like holds your hand all the way through, just adds a little piece every day. So if at any point you're scared, you're not sure what to do, just make sure you speak up. The test is next week. And probably not Thursday, it'll probably be moved to Wednesday. Just letting you know. So that means your binder check would be the day before on Tuesday. So make sure your notes are up to date, especially if you've been absent. The expectation is that you keep up. But I know sometimes you're sick, sometimes you're not able to. It's all recorded and it's all in there. So the notes go in as a project grade. You don't want a 0% and a 20% category, that's for sure. So note sheets are here if you need to help yourself, but you can also take notes on your own paper. Saturday Academy is a Saturday. Some of you saw my invite via email. I still need to give some people like specifically what they need to do at Saturday Academy to get their grade up. Right now, it's mostly the quizzes because that's all that's really in the assessment category. Next week, we take the unit test, which is 150 assessment points. So like, don't get overwhelmed trying to go back and recover all your quizzes. If you need to spend Saturday Academy asking questions on the study guide, then that might be a good use of that time. So this you can grab if you want. I don't plan to give it out until Monday, but it's also linked in Schoology. I've been working on getting the other study guide ready too. So I'll let you know when that one's ready. Questions? Yeah, Saturday Academy is open to all, not just those that are failing. So get extra help for a test. But anyway, we're gonna skip this next problem. It's not a bad problem. I just don't think you need it as much for the test as you need problems like these. So we're gonna look at earning interest. A bank account has a monthly interest rate of 1% and initial balance of $1,000. Any earned interest is added to the account and no other deposits or withdrawals are made. What's the account balance after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and 5 years? Have those answers and then be able to write an equation using the variables that they want you to use. Those are those. Okay, so let's start with the expression. What setup should I use when there are percent changes involved? Table 4, can you tell me? There are percent changes involved. What should be my starting place? Maybe we should have spent time figuring it out, looking at our notes, looking at our warm up. There's not anything else different in this. I mean, there's like one minor thing. But just where we start, it should not be any different. So table 4, what's the equation that I should start with? Not necessarily for this problem, for any problem that has percent change. Warm up. So that's the really general one. What about the ones that have the percent change in it? Almost exactly the same. But you wanted to. Okay, good. So that is like step 1. If you don't know that, you need to memorize it by next week for sure. But I don't know how we haven't yet. With like, it comes up in almost every single lesson. This one you can use even for the other exponential type functions before that we were looking at. But this one is better for the percent changes for sure. Because it includes the R, how you can figure out what you have to multiply by to get the next value. So then table 5, what would this formula be in relation to this situation? Okay, perfect. So really only 2 things you need to be able to identify, your initial amount and the rate that it's increasing or decreasing by. So interest adds to the cost. So that's why we're using a plus this time. Anything that's depreciating or decreasing, you would use the minus. But in order for it to grow, it needs to be times something bigger than 1. So we're gonna add the rate as a decimal. 1% as a decimal is 0.01, not 0.1, that would be 10%. So there's that. So that is our basic setup for answering this series of questions. When it's 6 months, what's my exponent gonna be? Table 6, can you tell me that? Okay, good, because time is measured in what for this problem? Months. It's a monthly interest rate that's applied. So pretty straightforward, and you said. Table 7, what about in a year? What's my exponent gonna be? There are 12 months in a year. If you calculated it with an exponent of 1, that really wouldn't make sense, that you would have less of amount added to your total after 1 year than in 6 months. Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's why you have to reread it. How many times is that interest rate being applied in a year? 12 times. That's for every month. Table 8, what would the exponent be for 2 years? 24. All right, nothing else is changing, only the time frame. And then table 9, what about in 5 years? What's my exponent gonna be? 60. 60. So you could do 5 times 12, like I've seen it represented like this on your test. And you could still in your exponent write it like that, but it is 60. So just keep that in mind if you see that on your test, that is so good. Now, it didn't want just the expressions, it wanted the answer for each. So we'll look at that in a second. But for number two, it wanted the equation using specific variables. So don't overthink that part. In our expressions, look at everything that stayed the same and everything that varied. Things that vary get replaced with variables. This one wants us to use A for account balance. So what does that need to replace in my equation that I wrote up here? Table one, can you tell me? If it wants me to use A for account balance, where do I put it? So in this formula it is, when we rewrite it as an expression, we're gonna keep it as 1,000 because it's 1,000 in each situation. But it wants you to use the letter A in place of what instead? What is changing each time, other than the exponent? So the exponent is changing. Other than the exponent, what would change each time? Is the initial amount changing at all? Is the interest rate changing at all? So it's the amount that is in the balance, literally the account balance, the Y. So for this one, it wants you to use A for that. Weird, I know. But Y represents your account balance. It says, write it using account balance for A. And then it wants you to use the letter M for number of months. Where do you think that has to go? Where the exponent is. So don't overthink it. In any expression that we're writing, what's staying constant should have numbers. So like these didn't change at all. But the number of months and the account balance in the end did change. All right, hopefully you know how to use your calculator by now, but just in case we don't, we're gonna put that in so that you can see. And so that we could also have the answer for our notes in case you need to refer back to it later. So the account balance for each one, make sure that you're putting it in your notes if you haven't already. And then we're gonna practice our rounding rules. Because again, if you don't round where they want you to on the quiz, I'm not going back and changing it this time. Jaden? And Jack, who's that? All right, so for the 6 months, we are talking about money, so let's make our answer look like money. How many decimal spots does money have? So we're gonna look at the hundredths place. That's what we call that, the hundredth place. Is where we want to round to. You gotta look at the number to the right of that. So when I write this down on my paper, is it gonna be 0.52 or 0.53? 0.52. So 1,061.52 was correct for that one. Now for 12 months or 1 year. Go to the hundredths place, look to the right, since that number is a 5. Is it gonna be 0.82 or 0.83? So 1,126.83. I should hear more than one person on this next one. For the 24 months, the 2 years, rounding so that it looks like money. So go to the hundredths place, look to the right. Since that number is a 4, should I make it 0.73 or 0.74? 0.73 is correct. And then the last one, when it's 5 years later. So the number we're rounding to, like underlined is a 9, the number to the right is 6. So what's my decimal going to be for that one?
27.
Good. So it was 69 cents, but then we have to round up. So then 70 cents. And that's all we have time for, because now I have to stop and take the quiz. For number 3 though, on your notes, it says like how much interest will the account earn in 1 year? You don't really need to know that for your test, but if it was expressed in months, and we have the value for what it was after 1 year, you would subtract what you started with, which was 1,000. And then divide that by 1,000 to get your decimal percentage of the yearly interest. But again, you don't need to know that for your test.
Well, I do feel like.